Hey, everybody, and welcome to the 5th episode of the Grimdark Breakdown. Today, we're actually going to do something a little different. We are going to look at armies across the year 2025 to talk about who's had a good year, who's had a bad year. We're going to look at what armies have been at the top of the meta, who's been just a standard good tournament army, who's been a solid army. Nothing wrong with taking them to a GT or an RT or a Grant, a big old super major, who's had kind of a rough year. And then if this is your army, it might be a great time. New army, new year, maybe look at something else. So I've got a new guest with me today. So you guys have probably heard a couple of my videos when I talk about I play guard a lot. I've got my bud Chris here. Chris has been playing guard for I think 3 years now.
About
played in
2.5
multiple
years.
tournaments. So Chris is going to be helping me out.
Wonderful. Happy to be here.
So since you're the guest, I will let you pick first. Who would you like to start with?
Well, given the intro, I'll start with guard. Personally, I think guard is broken down to two categories where you have how's life been for the casual player, how's life been for the tournament player. For a tournament player, I think we've been pretty standard. We're a tournament standard virtually the entire year. Had a lot of ups, a lot of downs. Things have been going well, but generally speaking, with a good pilot, ship pretty much flies exactly the direction you're pointing it. For your casual player who doesn't have a substantial range, I would say they've probably been they probably have had a little bit of a rougher year, only because there's been a lot of points changes. And again, if you don't have the luxury of having, the funds to expand your range significantly, it's probably been a little bit of a...
Yeah, I would agree with you. We're and I apologize for not leading with this. We are going to look at this for what we're calling like the casual tournament goer, not the person that just wins, 3 GTs a year and, and is competing at super majors, because we know that's a tiny piece of the population. We're looking at
not me.
we're looking at the person, that wants to go to tournaments. They're trying to break out of that, 3-2 or 4-1, perspective. So since we're picking the home teams, I guess I will just pick my lovely girls. So I think that sisters have had a great year. We got nerfed into oblivion basically last October, and I think it's the lowest the faction's been played since I've played the game. It created complete faction abandonment. Here's the cool part, though. GW, in its infinite wisdom, took 6 months to walk it back across 2 different data slates. And then when they did, the players kind of trickled back in and they kind of returned to their form. We're pretty much where we were before, except we did get a tiny buff to Retributors in this last patch. But other than that, we're pretty much where we were before the nerf. And I think we're a standard tournament army. Our play rate is still low. We're only 2% of all players. So we are one of the least played factions, but we do have a good amount of tournament wins. We have a good amount of 4-0 starts. And I think for the average player, once you learn the army and you learn the mechanics, I think they've been a tournament staple. I think the biggest thing that's honestly been holding them back is as we get into the top of the meta, I've been playing sisters for 3 years and I'm not half bad at them. And I can tell you that the top of the meta is just, they're really difficult for us to deal with.
I would probably agree with that. Generally speaking, when I play you, obviously your skill level has a lot to do with it. However, when I play you, what I find is difficult to deal with is what they're going to do, and it's challenging to stop it. And I think the question really that starts to break down where your average player can, in order to play this army at its fullest extent, can they do the little tips and tricks that they need to do?
Yep, I think it's a great point. All right. What army are you picking next?
Go with Knights. Knights for me.
Good or bad?
Oh, that's a good point. Imperial Knights.
All right. I'm going to just so you know, I'm going to put everybody in solid army until you tell me where you want them to go.
Well, love-hate relationship myself with Knights. I've had the privilege or unfortunate privilege, depending on how you look at it, to play Knights pretty consistently across every tournament I've been to. They have a strong presence, large player base. They're a very popular army for newer players who are getting in, just because it's easier to fill out a 2,000-point army than it is for some other armies. But honestly, great year. I would say that I think this has been an above average year for them and compared to say 2024, I've just noticed with the point, especially in the in the time where we seen Canis dropping points, you started seeing them get pulled up a little more wins there. I think I'd probably put them in the A category. I don't. There was a brief period where they were definitely top of the meta, but I definitely would put.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think, you know, I was just looking at the stuff as you were talking. A lot of people are going 4-0 with them. I think they're a very solid army, and I think they're also very forgiving. I think it's similar to something you said with Sisters. You know what they're going to do a lot of the time. It's just can you stop it? You know. Okay, so I'm going to pick the army that I actually picked up this year and started playing, which is World Eaters. I'm going to put them straight into tournament staple, and here's why. I actually think we were stronger in the index than we were in the codex. If you ask me, in first quarter, we were stronger before we got our book. In second quarter, I think we lost a step as we got our book. And then third quarter, I think we actually gained a step because they figured out, oh, we were a little heavy-handed with some of these things. I mean, great example is like Angron is straight up unplayable, which sucks. But the biggest problem that World Eaters honestly have, I think they're a sensational army, is that I think of the 27, 28 armies in the game, I think you have a green matchup into like 25 of them. And there's 3 armies that if they don't make a mistake, it's almost impossible to win, which just is really hard. It's really, really hard. When you have a couple armies that you just straight up don't have a matchup into, it makes it really hard.
Actually really interested to see where 2026 goes for World Eaters, because I think you've done just good enough to draw some attention, which you saw with some of the changes, but you haven't done, as you'll see here in a moment, like Death Guard-esque, where you've drawn the attention, if you will. The eye isn't completely on you, but I think you're starting to see the players that play World Eaters, how to play them. You saw a huge surge. Obviously, you're going to see that with the Codex coming out, a huge surge in their player base. But I'm really curious, will the other players not playing World Eaters figure out how to play them, figure out how to play against them? And of course, if GW's eyes get on them, where we're going to see them fall in, say, the first quarter of 2026. But I think I would agree with you. A is where I put.
All right.
For me, we'll just lean right into that. Speaking of Death Guard, let's go Death Guard. No secret, I think Death Guard, top of the meta. Virtually
I didn't put that one in solid army. I knew where that was going.
Virtually, when you have such a spike, obviously the nerf did what it did. When you had such a spike that they've had, it's been a good year. At the end of the day, they're still a decent army right now, even after the changes. But of course, hard to stay at the top for that long without getting the bad as hard as you did. So enough said there.
To the most played army this year, most tournament wins this year. So it's hard to say that they didn't have the cream of the crop year. So since we did that, I'm going to go the complete other end of the spectrum. I'm going to go Imperial Agents. And here's the thing. They came out that, they teased that there was a new army coming out, and, people had a lot of different thoughts, Dark Mechanicum, and we found out it was Imperial Agents, which, for those of you who don't know, is basically the hodgepodge models that don't fit anywhere. And they said you can steal Grey Knights and Sisters of Battle model. And it's not a real army. And it's so small on stat check, it actually says that 0% of people play them, because in all of North America, in all the games tracked by stat check, there's been 20 people who have brought these guys to the table. Like, they're just not a real army. This is Games Workshop's way of getting $60 so that you could take the Calidus Assassin or any of those kind of things. So, like, I'm sorry if you bought this and you thought this was going to be something. I would be willing to bet money in 11th edition. They'll keep the book just to milk money out of people, but it's not a real army.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. That I have an assassin. They got my 60, and we'll leave it at that.
Yeah. All right.
You went the opposite end of the barrel. I'm actually going to go with one, also a low played army. I'm going to go with Death Watch. I actually think, again, it's hard to say, but I actually think Death Watch had a decent year. You just don't see them that often. So it's kind of hard to determine, did they have a great year? Did they have an average year? Is this what they've always done? I'm going to put...
Not an army. Okay, so who are you going with now, Chris?
I'm going to go with another low played army with Death Watch. But again, with the 1% of the population, but high win rate or higher upper 40 win rate, 4-0 starts, a decent amount of 4-0 starts, but not many tournament wins. I still think they're a solid army. I just don't think they have the range, nor do they have the player base for people really to get a good taste of them. I'd put them at solid army.
Couldn't agree with you more. Like, I feel like they're a niche enough army. If someone plays them, they know what they're doing.
Well, the fun part is, in the one time I've encountered them, I had no idea what they did, and they wiped the floor with me. And then when I went back and learned, you're like, how is this not played more? It's fascinating to me.
But... Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to pick one that's kind of near and dear to one of our friends' hearts. I'm going to pick Orks. So I think Orks have had a rough year. I think that they suffer like a lot of armies for the codex creep. They got their codex early, and I think their army is thematically one of the coolest armies in the game. The problem is, was easy to anticipate. They're easy to screen. I do think letting Gaz lead stuff was a big help, but I've played our buddy a bunch. I've played other Orc players at tournaments. I've never played an Orc player where I was like, no, they're going to do this thing and I don't know how to stop them. It was, I think I could do this and I think this will stop them. And they're not as tough as they should be. Their shooting is not a threat at all, basically. And their melee is respectable, but like when I've played World Eaters, the only thing that actually scares me is they have an auto fight on death. Like their melee isn't even, I just feel like that they just don't have an identity. They either need to be tougher, they need to hit harder, they need something, because they're just mediocre at everything, but they're not good at anything.
It's funny, especially with our friend playing Orcs. I have watched the ups and the downs of the army. The thing that I'm fascinated with is where they're ending the year. I think is a sign in the right direction.
Yeah, they're definitely trending
with the
in
battle
the right
wagon and putting Gaz in there. I think they're trending upward, but it's been a rough year. You had your moment of glory. You had the spotlight on you with the.
For like 2 weeks for more DACA.
You had your 2 weeks of fun, and man, I hope that's on a trend that GW continues with that immediate response. I don't think it was that bad. The community seemed to think so, but yeah, unfortunately, I do believe they've had a rough year, and I don't think that the last quarter is going to make up for what they went through the first three.
All right, sir.
For me, I'm going to go Thousand Sons. Thousand Sons. I'm going to put them in, again, another army that's had kind of an interesting year. Where are they at here?
There.
Yeah, so another army that's had an interesting year. Great start. Codex kind of changed them. Personally, I'm not a fan of any army where the rules lean so far into RNG. And I think that anytime you see armies where, in a lot of ways like Orcs, where it's so heavily dependent on dice rolls, it's so heavily dependent on the dice going your direction, it kind of changes things. World Eaters are a little immune to that with the dice you roll at the beginning of the turn. But again, I'm going to call them solid. I think they had some peaks and they had some valleys in the year, but I think they're still solid.
The World in Me player wants to be like, it's literally the exact same thing. I have rolled a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 and had no army rule for a turn and gone awesome. Like I get the fun of it, but to your point, like Sisters, World Eaters, T-Sons, which are all right here, their army rule is 100% RNG dependent. And when the dice are in their favors, they feel unstoppable. But when the dice are not in their favor, it's like, oh, this is cool. I don't even get to play a fair game.
Yeah, so, it doesn't feel good. So I'll give you that.
Man, I'm gonna pick another one that is gonna go a little low. Custodes. Man.
Yeah.
But to say it's a rough year is an understatement. So like they are completely dependent on rolling a 4-up invulnerable save. They have one detachment that gives them advance and charge, but other than that, they're an army that moves 6 inches and then charges you. They have shooting. I saw a video the other day and they basically said that they need to nerf wardens so that they can buff Custodes. And I really thought about it, and they're right. Wardens are maybe the scariest data sheet I've ever seen. I mean, they are too good. And the problem is they can't give Custodes a good detachment because it would make Wardens even better. So I think that I really just think this is, I don't think they're that far off. This is just an army that, in my opinion, needs to be reworked because they are completely reliant on a 4-up. And if you know how to deal with like the big scary bricks, because every one of their bricks is like 300, 400 points. They're easy to deal with. And so I just, unfortunately, if you're a Custodes player, this is a great time for Christmas. Ask your mama, ask your loved one, ask somebody, for a Christmas box or a combat patrol for a new army, and pick something up. I do think last bit of like good, I think that they will get some love going into 11th edition. But right now, man, and it's been this way for a hot minute, they're rough.
It's a shame. It really is a shame for thematically how cool they are.
Yeah.
In a weird way, I kind of put them in the same realm as knights, in the sense of when they're strong, it's terrifying. And when they're one tweak in the wrong direction, they take over. And then you almost see the nerf bat take over. Knights always seems to stay where they are, just from the data sheet perspective. I think that's where Custodes needs the help, is just some improvement of the data sheets. I mean, yeah, you could argue the detachment needs work too, but I still think if you just tweak the data sheets a little bit to where at a minimum there's still some stat checkiness that goes on with it, it'd be nice to have.
Yeah, I agree.
I'm gonna go, speaking of knights, I'm gonna go out with Chaos Knights.
He likes his robots today.
I'm gonna put them in solid army, and here's why.
There we go.
Started the majority of the year, you're like, oh, okay. Finishing strong to the point where you're starting to wonder, oh no, what's next year going to look like? That's kind of how I look at it. Like, next year, are we going to see them stay where they are? I feel like they're one slight buff away from taking over. I really do. But generally speaking, I think they've had a solid year, and they're finishing pretty strong.
Yeah, I think that, the despoiler cannon is a drug.
Yeah.
So it my only nervous energy for them is if that one model gets nerfed, they're going straight into the dumpster. So I feel like they're on the razor's edge, if that makes any sense.
No, it does. You just feel like we're the teeter-totter's leaning, and you're just waiting to see what direction it's going to go.
Exactly. All right, so we're going to pick Dark Angels. Funny thing, man, I've said this a couple times. I've collected Dark Angels for like 15
Sore
years.
subject, huh? Yeah.
I've never taken them to a tournament. I'm going to put them in rough year. Here's the thing. The Deathwing Knights, I think, are the prettiest Terminators that are on the market. The problem is that they're a 5-inch moving model that once they took away the ability to do closer deep strikes and charge and things like that, and they retooled how all that stuff works like a year and a half ago, they've just struggled. I think there's some interesting builds that are popping up. I actually think that they're in a really, really good position because they have been a subpar army for quite a while, and they're steadily on the rise. The biggest thing that's kind of disappointing, though, with them is they're on the rise, and very little of it is actual Dark Angels units. It's like 2 Dark Angels units and a lot of Space Marines.
Yeah.
They have like 7 characters, and the only ones that anyone ever takes is Azrael and sometimes the Lion. And I think it'd be really cool if they could actually do something with them. But I do think they're on the rise. I think they're moving in the right direction. The biggest problem is they're supposed to be the tough army that hits hard, and they hit hard, but they're not that tough anymore. And it's just a codex creep.
Fortunately or unfortunately, I have the privilege of playing against them because I know it's a very favorite army of you. But I've never been in a game with you where I felt like, man, what's the choice here? How do I stop this? How do I fix this? Sisters, there are things that you can go, dang, I don't know how to beat that. World Eaters, I don't know how to beat that. You just feel like they're kind of in this. I hate to use the teeter-totter example again, but they're kind of there where you feel like they're one change from either going forward or backward. And I hope it's forward. I really do. I'd like to see them on the tables in 2026. I'm going to go a different direction here as well. I'm going to go with, I don't even see them on the board.
All right, go with Space Wolves.
Yeah, Space Wolves, man. Again, this is one of the armies where it's like holistically solid army. You could make the argument rough year for a brief period, but I think they're going to end the year in solid army. They had the Codex. They got some good units. There's a lot of rumors coming for the end of the year here in a few days, potentially, where I'm excited to see where that goes. Happens to be the army that will be my second army that I'm going to collect. I think solid army. Haven't had the greatest year, but I really think that if you own them, you're not wishing you created something new. You're not necessarily disappointed. You didn't get hit with a data slate where you're just almost brought to tears. You didn't feel like you made a bad purchase. Plus, thematically, man,
I was
top
about to say,
5.
you can't put them lower than Solid Army when they got maybe the prettiest range refresh that we've seen in years. God bless America.
I mean, the optics alone of dropping them on the board puts them in Solid Army, in my opinion.
Well, here's the other thing. They are, in GW's opinion, like the perfect army. They have a 50% win rate for the year. They've won some tournaments. They've had some 4-0 starts. I think they're a really solid army. I honestly just think that they're in a better position to Dark Angels. They just have a couple of their unique data sheets that just need just a smidge, whether it's a point adjustment or a data sheet adjustment, and all of a sudden they're moving up. All right, let's go with maybe my single least favorite army to play, Genestealer Cult.
Oh, that was gonna be my next one. Yeah,
I'm going to put them in tournament staple. So here's
absolutely.
the thing. They are, they're never the best army and the hardest army you're going to fight. But if you aren't paying attention to every move they make and every move you make on your turn, you've lost the game. If you, they are the definition of a thinking man's opponent, because they have a million shenanigans and you have to plan for them accordingly and deal with them. They actually have the highest win rate of any army in 2025. The problem is that they don't win a ton of tournaments, which is the only reason they're not at the top of the meta. So that they get to the final game a lot and then they lose, or they get to the final four a lot and then lose. I think they're a solid army. I think they're very, very niche. Very few players will play them, but they're a very good army.
I sat here and thought to myself, would this be S tier? Would this be top of the meta for about 5 minutes? My opinion is skewed a little bit coming from a shooting army, and they are critical to be played. You have to play very correctly when you're playing a shooting army against them due to the shenanigans. I think it's hard for me to say they're a tournament standard. They're less than an S tier. It's hard for me to say they're less than that with the stats they produce. But then that final stat, well, the problem is that final stat, I don't think you could say top of the meta if they're not winning tournaments. I think what's happening is they're falling victim to being poor matchups against the things that were in the top of the meta. And I think that's the only thing keeping them from top of the meta. If it wasn't for like your Death Guards and even some of your World Eater players, who I think World Eaters are kind of a really good matchup into.
Oh, it's a free win. It's a straight up free win.
And I'm saying it's like you have that and you go into some of the Space Marine variants. I just don't think they match up very well into some of those, which is why they're staying at tournament standard. So I agree, tournament standard, but I think it's more of it's not a reflection of them. It's a reflection of who's in the top. I'm going to go Tau.
Old Tau.
I have a love-hate relationship with Tau because they shoot better than my guard. They, in my opinion, walking around looking like Bumblebee is just, they look awesome. They have great stats. I just think we're in the wrong time, wrong place right now for Tau. Good army, can't call them a tournament standard, great stats. I just don't think they're fit. It's similar to Genestealer in the way that they're just not fitting in to what the current meta is. But I would love to see it. I think we're getting a little bit away from the shooting meta right now, and I think they're feeling that pain a little bit. But great army, solid army. That's where I'd put them.
I think the biggest thing, honestly, was the fact that they can now split fire once things have been like spotted. If they had that all year, I think we would be having a different conversation, and I think they'd be up in tournament standard. The fact that they just got that a couple months ago, I think that has been a transformative change, and we've seen, because they were honestly probably in a rough year category before that, and now I think they'll end solid.
Unless you're a shooting army, it's been pretty easy to walk over. They're difficult to beat with the amount of stealth and stuff that they have. They're difficult to beat, but
they really prey on hybrid to shooting armies. But there's only a handful of like full melee armies. So I think it's also like board matchup. I was watching a game where the guy was talking about like, give me hammer and anvil, give me hammer and anvil, give me hammer and anvil, and he got search and destroy, and he was like, well, this is probably over.
Yep. Who you got?
All right. I am going to go with the hot sauce, Adeptus Mechanicus. So I'm going to go with a hot take. I'm only going to put them in tournament standard. Here's why. So they are the bane of my existence. Here's the deal. Until the last data slate, they were not good. They were terrible in first quarter. They were mediocre in second quarter, and they were mediocre in third quarter. They're the best army in the game right now, and it's not even close. It's not even close. But if we're looking at this for the entirety of the year, I would put them in solid to rough, depending on what time frame you're looking at. And then they're having a banger fourth quarter. But here's the deal: we're probably gonna get the data slate next week, and they're gonna get slaughtered. And it's
Maybe.
there's no way. There's no way. And so I think it's just they're gonna end there. They had their time in the sun. They won the world championship. They're winning everything right now. But the biggest thing is they have the same thing that Death Guard had. They're undercosted right now, so they've got probably 1 to 2 extra units. I think that's going to go away here in about a week, and they're going to come back down to earth.
Again, I'm trying to think of this from the perspective of your casual player, and I think even your casual player enjoyed themselves and would consider themselves tournament standard. With that in mind, that's kind of where I'm going next is like Chaos Demons. Casual player probably had a little bit of a rougher year.
Yeah, I was about to say.
But your tournament players
did okay.
You could almost, stat-wise, put them at the standard. But still, your tournament play, I would say solid army. But again, here's why I'm going to make the argument for solid army.
Okay.
Tell me, justify to me how they're different from Knights in the sense of how many armies could they put those 400 point units up there and just win because of stat check?
I think the only thing that makes them different than Knights is they have a lot of disposable units, and Knights don't.
Sure. Well, yeah, but I'm saying from a stat check perspective was kind of my thought process.
Well, at the end of this, since this is Chris's first one of these to do with me, at the end, we each have a chance to see if we want to move any up or down. Okay. I'm going to lobby that Chaos Demons goes down. I think Chaos Demons
fair enough.
is a dog shit army that is like, I'm a good player. I'm not an elite player. If you told me that I'm going to a tournament next weekend, and if you said the best Chaos Demon player in North America is going to show up, I'd be like, let's go. Let's get it. You're playing Chaos Demons. I like my odds. Like you're bringing a musket, and I'm going to bring an M4 to this gunfight. It's just, I just don't think they're a good army.
Yep.
They have 2 detachments
I'll make
that are
my case momentarily.
They're a better versions of Agents of the Imperium, in my opinion.
Yeah.
All right. You went with the Demons. So I'm actually going to go with Grey Knights. I think Grey Knights have had a real rough year, and I'm actually
such a fun army too.
Cool army. As a hobby project early this year, I basically, from a buddy, I bought an entire 3,000 points of Grey Knights, and I converted them all into Primaris scale. And as a side hobby project, they're sitting up on my shelf over there, and I painted about 500 points of it and played them a couple times, and I was like, oh, these guys have a lot of fundamental problems. They're cool and they've got some neat rules, but they love to do melee and do good melee damage. Mm-hmm. They don't want to be touched back. They love to shoot and could do good shooting. They don't like to get shot back. I've never seen anything with a 4-up invone that dies so easy, because all their infantry is basically 4 toughness, and all their vehicles are 7, 8, or 9. They are squishy as all shit, and it's rough. I literally played them one time, and Karn by himself killed a 10-man strike squad by himself.
Here's my problem. Army with the rule that they have, with the abilities that they have, Deep Strike being so prevalent with that army, the shenanigans being so prevalent with that army, and then the change to Deep Strike. It was almost as if they were struggling a little bit going into the Deep Strike change, and then the Deep Strike change happened, and you're like, well, damn.
Yeah.
No, I wonder, tinfoil hat, they had to have had that conversation internally. Hey, we're making a change to Deep Strike. We have an army that's so dependent on it. Are we gonna do something? Do they have something planned for them moving forward? I really like the Grey Knights. I would love to see them do something special with them.
All right, who you want?
I'm going Drukhari. I'm going to give you 2 perspectives, and I would. How dare you start them in solid army? Here's the problem. This is the saddest decision for me on this list. I think they have decent data sheets, decent rules.
Yes.
I don't think they've caught up to the changes that other armies have received.
Well, they have to jump through 7. So your guard can look at something and shoot it, or my sisters can look at something and shoot it, or my world eaters can charge something and hit it. They have to jump through 7 hoops and then toss their guns back and forth and use pain tokens to do the same thing.
It's the setup that makes it challenging for me. I had the opportunity to play against a very good Drukhari player, and I walked away from there going, "Oh, this army's not as terrible as I thought it was. You played that correctly. I still won the game, but I walked away going, no, they get buffed, we're in trouble." Like that's what I walked away from that.
Here's why they were not in trouble. Here's why we're not in trouble, Chris.
Well, I'm in trouble.
Half of their range, you can't buy it. They don't sell it. It's so old.
Yeah.
GW, this is like their ex-wife's child that they never loved. Like, it's that far removed. They don't give a shit about Drukhari.
Well, yeah,
they should.
I completely agree with
they
you.
look awesome. Their playstyle is cool. Their lack of disrespect when it comes to refreshing their models and getting new models is insane.
I very fair point, valid point. I guess let me rephrase what I was saying. I walked away from there saying, if this army as it sits were to get buffed, assuming they were available, it would be a scary thing because they were so fun to play against. You have to, a lot of things you have to learn about them. Really sad because you see them. They're not uncommon. I see them at every tournament I've been to, but it's sad to put them where they are.
Yep. So I'm going to pick the other army that I think has like the Games Workshop just forgot about. So we talked about Grey Knights, about how they changed the rule. They literally made their army rule about battle shocks and then went, hey, by the way, we're not going to make battle shocks really a thing anymore. And we're not going to change Tyranids.
Yeah.
We have another friend that plays Tyranids, and I have rolled a quadrillion battle shocks, and I can think of like once or twice that it's ever made any damn bit of difference. And here's the spoiler alert. The 1 or 2 times where it really matters, I just go, I'll spend a CP in insane bravery and not even risk it so that I can make sure I pass to hold this objective. I mean, their monsters aren't as scary as they should be. Their shooting isn't as scary as it should be. They can't, like, to me, like where the Orks, I feel like they've nailed it thematically. I feel like, especially considering they're supposed to be the big bad of 10, they have missed the ball so horribly. It's not, they forget Recon Guard. It should be Horde Tyranid. And I don't know how that's not a thing and how that's not a big prevalent thing that's out there, but it's not a thing. You know, it's just, I just feel like they've really missed the mark with Tyranids. And Tyranids should have gotten a lot more love being the big bad of this edition.
Yeah, you know, again, perspective skewed a little bit because, you know, I played a lot of games against Tyranids. I think they're falling victim to the step away from the Horde meta that we were in for a little while. I think they were one of the ones that got hit with the bat. And unfortunately, when they play the monster list and they go heavy shooting, it feels good, but it feels like, are you going to win a game with your, you know, 11 or 12 toughness models? Or are you really going to plant them on points and win the game that way? I feel like their identity is a little rough right now. However, they're ending the year in a decent spot. You've started to see, I'm struggling to remember what the detachment's called.
Subterranean Assault. Yeah.
Subterranean Assault.
I call it the Tunnel Snakes. The Tunnel Snakes is not bad.
It's not bad. You're starting to see it move in that direction a little bit. So I'm curious where it goes, but I'd kind of agree with you. They've had a little bit of a rough year, but again, they're falling victim to what I would call targeted nerfs at other people that is really affecting them.
All right, who you got?
Let's go Space Marines, man.
Ultramarines or non-Codex Space Marines? Because those are different.
Sure. I'm going to go Ultramarines.
Okay.
And this is where I struggle.
The casual player, they're solid.
Holistically, casual player, solid army. You start talking about tournament players, they start moving up that list. Like, in my heavily. I start to ask myself, okay, again, think of this from the casual player perspective. I would actually argue they're going to go up a little bit because I think even your casual player, good God. But again, as a year as a whole, solid army. Last 3 months, definitely tournament standard, minimal.
Yeah, I think the really hard part about Ultramarines, and I'm going to just pick on Ultramarines for a second, and I'll do this. I'll do the divergent, the non-divergent chapters next. But I think Ultramarines are gonna have a similar problem to the next one I'm gonna do. Tournament, like the top end players, they go up. The casual players, they're here, but the bulk of people that play them are actually lower, which is why their stats are so deceiving. So then if we looked at the non-compliant chapters, so we're talking about the new Salamanders detachment, the new Iron Hands, or mainly the Raven Guard detachment, I'm actually going to put it in solid, and here's why. The Raven Guard detachment was all the rage for about 2 or 3 weeks, and this is what I think Games Workshop, you brought up the Mordaka thing with the Orc, should do. Like, Raven Guard came out and it won every tournament for like a weekend. Like, it was the big winner of the weekend. And everyone was like, oh my gosh, they're unstoppable. And then people kept playing them and realized if you pressure them, they have no fallback and do anything. So just charge your Rhino or your Chimera or your whatever into something. And that unit is literally useless to that player. So I think that they gave them a chance to get figured out, and they got figured out. And I've played 3 times. I've played Raven Guard players, and I played all 3 of them with sisters. So my most experienced army. And the first game was tough. It was really tough. And then I watched I watched someone else play them, and they were like, you got to pressure them hard. And then the other 2 games, I full sent at them, and it was 2 of the easiest wins I've ever had. So I think it's cool. I think I like the fact that they've got some thematic stuff, but it's a solid army, but it's nothing to write home. Who you got?
I would agree with you there. I'm curious. You're going obviously putting Black Templars in there.
No. The non-divergent. I'm talking about like they're the Codex compliant chapters. So like Imperial Knights got a book and all that. So you can pick whoever. You got Black Templar.
I'm going Black Templars.
I'm going Black Templars. Okay, cool.
Really, you knew where I was going.
I almost was going to go here.
No, I wouldn't go new army. I listen. I wouldn't. At the end of the day, they're fun to play. Need a lot of love. Need a lot of love.
Their codex is literally gibberish.
Okay, fair point.
I played 4 players. Every single one of them was either running Stormlance or Gladius. They were like, I'm not even going to use my book.
The only ones I've encountered were Gladius. And here's my problem. Is it's like I anytime I'm talking about any of these variants, I say to myself, well, if they got a good player, but again, reminding myself that the casual player has probably not had a good year.
We're going to argue about this one at the end.
You want to go down? I already see that.
Dude, they have the same problem Custodes have. Like, their bricks, like, their sword brethren is the most terrifying melee brick you can encounter. Like, I'd throw them up there against anything. They can one-shot a freaking knight, okay? They're insane. They're like 400 points, and they move 6, and they're, even though with Gladius where they can advance, it's like they're a move 9 unit that you can block. Like, every time I've fought them, I'm like, oh, that's your 400 point brick? Cool. I'm going to throw 5 Battle Sisters in front of you, which costs 50 points, and they're going to block you. And then when you're stranded, then I'm going to shoot you with 10 million. Like, they're just, it's such an easy army to play against, in my opinion.
Fair enough. Who do we have left? Let's see. What do we have left?
All right. You picked what should be in the new army, but you didn't. So I'm actually going to pick Necrons. I think Necrons have been a solid army. I think they started the year on a bang. Man, their Grotmas last year was the best Grotmas of all of them, and they were winning everything. It got hit a little bit, but they're back on the rise. Necrons are literally like their lore. They just don't stay down. They have been solid all year. They've been solid all edition. I think this year they haven't really been a standout and just been dominating tournaments, but they've been a really, really standard army, and I think they're in a good position going into next year. I mean, they get the new Nightbringer model at the very beginning of the year. I think they're going to be good, but for right now, just solid.
Yeah. Again, where we ended last year, where they're still recovering. In my opinion, they're still recovering. I would almost argue rough year. I really would. I know several Necron players, most of which have switched or are playing different armies right now. They just don't feel that they can compete.
We can put them at the top of rough.
Yeah,
we'll reorder at the end, but
yeah,
I could agree with that. Okay,
I'm gonna go Votann.
I hate the dwarves.
I think rough year.
Really?
Again,
do you know what their stats are?
I know what their stats are. I would go rough year only because I'd have to go check. I have not been to a tournament. And again, I know we're thinking casual, but I feel like if I go to tournaments, I get a pulse on what's going on. I feel like I haven't seen them. Am I crazy? I feel like I haven't seen them. I feel like I haven't encountered
they're
them.
one of the
Haven't
least played
seen them.
armies. The reason I wasn't trolling to put them higher, I was trolling to put them lower.
Oh, okay. I was like, are you serious? You're gonna go?
No, I don't. I mean, they're an honest Warhammer army. They play an honest game of Warhammer. They don't have a lot of jank. Their new detachment has a little jank, but like I don't know. I actually think they're in a really good position, just because they've basically gotten a second wave of models. You know, I think they've gotten 3 or 4 releases this year, so I think they're in a good position, but they're definitely needing some love. Okay, we're gonna go with the only other top of the meta army, Eldar, in my opinion. And I'm actually gonna put them at the front.
Is that because of the Death Guard nerf? Is that basically where your decision making there is going?
So I'm going this based on Death Guard basically dominated the game for about 4 months, and then they were good for 3 months, dominated for 4 months, and then they've been okay for the other, the rest of the year, the other 5-6 months. Eldar have not had a single time where they were not in contention to win. They're always good. They're always in contention. The reason is because even as their points change around, they've got multiple good detachments. They've got good data sheets. They've got good stratagems, and they just don't play a normal game of Warhammer. They have so many abilities to move in their opponent's turn or shoot in their opponent's turn. They just get to play a different game than the rest of the armies play.
Yeah.
And the 3 years of this edition, almost 2.5 years, they have never spent longer than 3 months where they weren't like one of the top 5 to 6 armies in the entire game.
Unfortunately, it's not an army I have a ton of experience with. It really isn't, and it's not an army that I've encountered a god awful amount of time. And it's just not. So I say I trust your judgment on this, but again, if you just look at the stats, I think you're right. You're right on.
The biggest problem I have with them is the last tournament I went to. All that I kept hearing was fire and fade, where they would basically shoot me and then go behind a wall, and I couldn't shoot them back.
Yeah,
and it was really, really rough. All right, 3 left. Who you want?
So who are the last ones?
We got Blood Angels.
I thought we did Blood Angels.
Nope. Okay. Chaos Space Marines and Emperor's Children.
I'm gonna go with Chaos Space Marines. And I love that we started with every army starting at solid army, and then gut instinct just moves them where they need to be. Rough year, man. Rough year.
They got a new detachment today, and it's not that good.
Okay, but here's my problem. Again, the Space Marine curse. It feels like you have moments of, for years, I feel like Games Workshop has done a really good job at keeping them average, and then bursts of awesomeness, and then back down to average, and then dips of despair, back to bursts of, and it's just, they fluctuate so much. But with the decent model range, it's hard to argue. Like, there's got to be something that can work. But I really believe they in particular have had a rough year. I really do. I just wish, you would think with the model range that they have, they wouldn't be in that category. You would feel there's something they could make work. And unfortunately, that's something they can't.
Yeah. The players that are winning stuff, they're winning it. It's not the army.
Fair enough.
I'm going to go with Emperor's Children. So Emperor's Children is going to be, so this is the hard one. If you're saying it's a really good pilot, I'm putting them right here. If you're saying that it's a standard player, I'm putting them here. They're so fast. Let me see that data sheet rule again. Like everything advances and shoots, everything advances and charges. It can't do the same thing. I understand, but for a casual player, once they understand the mechanics of how it works, they're demon princes charging and doing mortals. Like it's a nasty army. It's a very, very, very nasty army. The single biggest thing that's holding them back is they've got like 10 models in their range. So there isn't a lot of flexibility. So the first time you play them, it's going to be devastating. The 5th time you play them, you're going to understand it and be a lot better against it, because there's not going to be a lot of variety. Everybody's running one detachment. everybody's running about the same 1,700 points.
Yeah.
So, and it's just because they're brand new and there's about 10 models in their range. I think they sold really well. They're doing really well. They're very popular. So I think they get a second wave, in 11th edition. They're going to be cooking. But if you walk up to a table and you find out you're playing Emperor's Children, I would take it very seriously, because they can dish out an insane amount of damage in a short period of time.
Yeah, I got to agree with you. The player base isn't
Tiny.
historically low, but it's low. It's God, did they have a really rough start to the beginning of the year, in my opinion. But to your point, you get someone that knows how to play them, and you kind of feel like, oh crud, what do I do here if I'm not in a slightly above average matchup here? What do I do here? And so I would agree with you there. I would probably do a step down personally. I'd probably put him at solid with a good pilot. Holistically, if again we're going off the whole year, I'd probably put him at solid.
Yeah, I can agree with that. I'm gonna put him like right behind guard.
Yeah, that's kind of where I would put it. Again, in a weird way, I kind of look at him like guard. Obviously, not from a model range perspective or anything like that. But I really feel like your good players that are piloting them not going to have much. They've had a decent year, but
all right,
stats don't lie, man. Stats don't lie.
Last army, Blood Angels.
Blood Angels. Listen, Blood Angels are an interesting one for me. They're a really, really interesting one for me. Good player base, good win rate, decent top fours, not winning tournaments. Okay, well, let's go to the casual player. If they're not winning tournaments, that they're probably hovering around the solid army. I'm going to put them in a solid army. I've had the privilege of playing them quite repetitively over the last few months, numerous times. And I'll say this. Once you figure out how to play against it, at least from a shooting army perspective, you realize, oh, I have numerous win conditions. So for that reason, I'm going to put them at solid army. I don't think there's a lot of matchups where you walk into a Blood Angels matchup and go, well, I lose. Yeah. I think that there's a lot of room for error. There's a lot of room for movement mistakes. And for that reason, I'll put them at solid army.
No disagreement. All right. Only shifts I'm thinking, they've got to be the worst army. I can't abide that. I think that Votann, I'd move up a little bit. I'd move Chaos Space Marines up a little bit. I'm putting them down there. I kind of like how this is sitting.
Ultramarines are in a weird spot to me. Ultramarines would be the one that I would probably adjust a little bit. I really believe that. And again, I know we're trying to look at this from an average player perspective, but I'm telling you, I have played some average players. I'm an slightly above average player. And even against average players, man, that double.
Double oath a moment.
That
sucks.
double oath is
double
not
oath
fun.
a moment when they both give you +1 to wound. It sucks. It sucks.
It's not fun to play against. But the challenge is, if you're playing an army such as Death Guard, such as Aeldari, so even guard, go ahead, oath a moment. My tanks are better than yours. I'll fight it. You know what I mean? I feel like that I would still move them up because they're still a pain in the ass to deal with. They really are.
I moved up a couple slots, but I don't know. If I'm walking to a table, so I'm going to a tournament this weekend and I'm taking a friend that's brand new to the game. If he walks up there and he's fighting an Ultramarines player, I'm going to go, okay, pay attention to this or this. If he's fighting a Death Watch player, I'm going to just go, have fun. You're going to lose. But if they're Emperor's Children or Death Watch, if they know what they're doing, he's going to lose. Have fun, because they just got jank that he doesn't have. Yeah. The only thing I did up here is I definitely moved Gene Stealer and Admech up.
I'll be honest, I'm having a hard time. I really feel like Gene Stealer could be top of the meta. I really do. I feel like they are such a victim of who's in the top of the meta right now. I really do. Again, I'm not saying we move them. I'm saying that I agree with the decision, but I think they are.
I think the problem is like they're the bridesmaid, never the bride, because like they keep getting into metas where it's like they just can't get through that stuff.
Only change I would make, again, I was going to argue Chaos Knights, but again, I think if you're looking at the year as a whole, they're probably where they need to be. I think they're having a decent end of the year. Nothing jumps out to me. I would say now that, even though I just did it, I would probably move Blood Angels up a little bit. I think they're having a decent end, but again, you could make the argument either way. Nothing is standing out to me. Again, I agree. Here's what I wanted to see. Unintentional, where did most armies end up? Did most armies end up in the solid army? So now what I'm looking at, is there anybody in rough tier that I could argue to be solid army? And the reason I say that is I think we're in a really interesting spot as a whole from balance perspective,
Yeah.
right?
I mean, I could make the argument for Necrons. I could make the argument, I could make the argument for Necrons, Orks, or Dark Angels. Like, they're not winning a bunch of tournaments, but you could easily win 3 games I see a lot of people win 3 games, but
Yeah, I look at that bottom list and I
I
say,
just kind of look
okay,
at it like this though, man. Like, look at your 3 middle tiers. There's only 4 armies that are not in these kind of 3 middle tiers, which just
sure.
bounced around. I think it was a pretty great job by Games Workshop. I'm not trying to be a shill, just balancing it this year.
Yeah, it's funny because the amount of the minute changes that could be done to make such a dramatic shift. Like, I think Orks are probably Mega Knobs getting slightly changed from being right back in there. I think, okay, they need a little more than Mega Knobs, but you get what I'm getting at. Is there are a few minor changes from being a really solid army. Again, in the hands of a good player, they're a pain in the butt to deal with.
Give them a Stormlance detachment for Grotmus, where their whole army,
Oh no,
advances and charges, and
I'm tinfoil
just
hat. Someone over there hates them. Someone
someone does, because just give them an advance and charge detachment, and all of a sudden you're gonna see Orks doing okay.
the only thing that stood out to me is I don't feel good about that decision, and it's based on recent memory. Was Tyranids. Subterranean assault, I think, is going to be where we're leaning into later or early in next year, and but to be fair, where they're at right now is probably where they need to be. But I think that I'm looking for Tyranids to have a good 2026.
Yep. Well, that's everything, guys. If you'll drop a like for the Emperor, subscribe if you want more content like this. We really appreciate you guys. And we will see you on the next one.
Bye.